Year 1633. A man was forced to kneel before the Roman Inquisition. Priest's voice, echoing.
Do you admit that the earth revolves around the sun?
He knew if he said yes, he would die. But if he said no, his entire life, everything he believed in, would become a lie. His name was Galileo Galilei, and he had just discovered something that shook the entire world. In an era where the Bible was science and the church was the ultimate truth, he dared to say that they were all wrong. They called him a heretic, but 3 centuries later, all of humanity called him the father of modern science. He was once just a mischievous boy, fascinated by the light streaming through the church window, captivated by the ringing of bells and the rhythm of a swinging pendulum. But it was that very curiosity that turned the boy into a challenger of God himself. This is the story of a man who lived in an age of darkness, but left behind light for every generation to come.
Pur si muove.
Galileo was born in 1564 in Pisa, Italy, the same year Michelangelo took his final breath. One genius departed, another arrived. He grew up in a world where the Bible was law and the church was the absolute truth. In that world, asking questions was a sin. But in a small, impoverished house in Florence, there was a father who taught him otherwise. His father, Vincenzo Galilei, was a musician, a scholar, and the first in the city to dare challenge musical dogma. He believed that sound was not magic, but mathematics hidden in the vibrations of strings. Many nights, Galileo sat by his father, watching him pluck notes on the lute. His father pulled the strings harder, softer, then meticulously recorded each change in pitch. The boy asked, "What are you listening to, Father?" His father replied, "I'm not listening, I'm measuring." And in that moment, Galileo understood. Music was not just something to hear, it was something that could be proven. Once, at 8 years old, Galileo was punished by his teacher for asking too many questions. The teacher said, "You don't need to ask why the apple falls. God made it so." The boy replied, "But if God threw it, would he use the same force every time?" The class roared with laughter. The teacher's face turned red. And that was the first time Galileo realized, people hate the truth when they don't understand it. In 1575, the family moved to Florence. He studied at the Vallombrosa Monastery, a strict place where every small mistake was punished with a wooden ruler. The monks wanted to turn him into a priest. Galileo obediently read scriptures, but each night he sneaked out to the courtyard, gazing at the sky. He didn't pray, he counted the stars. In a small notebook hidden under his pillow, he recorded how they shifted positions with the seasons, and wondered, if they move, why does the Bible say they stand still? One day in the Pisa Cathedral during a mass, Galileo noticed a lamp hanging from the ceiling, swaying in the wind. While others prayed, he counted its swings to the rhythm of his heartbeat. After observing through the entire service, he noticed something strange. Whether the lamp swung widely or gently, the rhythm of its motion remained nearly constant. Back home, he told his father. His father laughed. "You see, son, music, pendulums, the heart, they all have their own rhythm." The boy didn't know that this moment planted the seed for the invention of the pendulum clock. And in that moment, Galileo learned a lifelong lesson. Truth lies not in faith, but in the steady rhythm of nature. But poverty was not forgiving. When he came of age, his father forced Galileo to study medicine, the only path that could save the family from debt.
Today we examine the musculature
In
of the
anatomy
arm
classes, when the teacher declared that blood moves by God's will, Galileo measured its flow with his own pulse. He didn't believe in God's will, he believed in repetition. That was the beginning of an extraordinary mind. A boy born in poverty, raised in imposed beliefs, and who learned that the only way to get closer to God was to dare to doubt him. And so, carrying his skepticism and thirst for truth, Galileo stepped into the University of Pisa, where his destiny would change forever. Gravity year 1581. Galileo, now 17, set foot in the University of Pisa, carrying his father's dream of becoming a doctor. But in his heart, the only disease he wanted to cure was ignorance. Medical lectures bored him. The professors read Aristotle like scripture. No one dared question it. They said heavy objects fall faster than light ones because God made them so. Galileo asked, "But has anyone ever measured it?" The question made the class burst into laughter. Only one mathematics professor, Ostilio Ricci, didn't laugh. He looked at Galileo for a long time, then said, "If you want to find the truth, study mathematics. Mathematics is the only language the universe deigns to speak with humans." Galileo abandoned medicine. He turned to mathematics, to numbers that spoke. Back then, his father worried himself sleepless. But when he saw his son's eyes light up over curves and equations, he understood. A genius cannot be forced to live another's life. Year 1583. Galileo observed a ball rolling down an inclined plane, measuring its speed with his own heartbeat. No clock, no instrument, just patience and the human pulse. Day after day, year after year, he repeated the experiment hundreds of times. His friends mocked him. "What are you doing, Galileo?" Playing with marbles? He only replied, "No, I'm listening to the earth speak." Later he wrote in his notes, "If we know how to look, nature will answer everything." And indeed, from those lifeless balls, he discovered the law of acceleration, the foundation of modern mechanics. When he became a mathematics lecturer in Pisa, Galileo began openly criticizing Aristotle. He taught his students not through books, but through experiments. He brought balls of different weights to the Leaning Tower of Pisa and dropped them simultaneously. Legend has it that when both balls hit the ground at the same time, a group of students cheered, while the professors walked away in silence. For Galileo had just shattered a law that had stood for over 2,000 years. But that victory brought no joy. The academic circle in Pisa saw him as arrogant. He was isolated, mocked in the hallways, his salary cut. Once he overheard two professors whispering, "That man doesn't understand God, and sooner or later, his own intellect will devour him." Galileo only smiled. He knew every revolution begins with solitude. In 1592, he left Pisa for the University of Padua, a freer place where no one controlled his thoughts. There, Galileo entered his most creative period. He didn't just teach, he challenged the world with his inventions. First came the military compass, a precise tool that allowed generals to calculate distances and cannon angles in battle. With it, warfare no longer relied solely on experience. For the first time, mathematics became a weapon. Nobles and generals in Venice clamored to order from Galileo, calling him the friend of victory. But Galileo didn't stop there. He created the first thermometer, a glass tube filled with water and air, measuring temperature changes that were once only vaguely felt. Doctors began using it to monitor patients' health, and farmers predicted the weather more accurately. For the first time, humans could not only feel nature, but measure it. These inventions were not just tools, they were a declaration. They told the world that truth did not lie in ancient books or the church's sermons, but in what humans could measure, prove, and understand. In Padua, Galileo planted the seeds of a revolution. a revolution that made the church begin to fear. But beyond his inventions, what made him exceptional was how he thought. Galileo didn't believe in absolute truth. He believed in doubt, in being wrong before being right. He once wrote to a student, "Those who believe they know everything are the ones who have stopped learning." His time in Padua was his happiest. He found love with Marina Gamba, had 3 children, and a small home filled with laughter, though he never married, for he feared it would bind his freedom.
Observe closely.
By
This
day,
instrument
Galileo
proves that
taught.
the ratio between the areas of 2 similar figures.
By night, he gazed at the sky through lenses he ground himself, recording the twinkling light of what others called fixed stars. But he knew nothing was fixed. Even God, if he existed, was moving with the universe. Year 1609. Galileo was 45. A friend from Venice sent a small piece of news. A Dutchman has just invented a lens that makes distant objects appear closer. Just one sentence, and Galileo was awakened. While others thought of profit, he thought of truth. For weeks, he locked himself in his workshop. No blueprints, no instructions, just 2 hands, lenses, and unrelenting curiosity. On the 43rd night, he raised his lens and pointed it at the moon, and the world changed. Before his eyes was not the smooth mirror described in the Bible. The moon was rugged, full of craters and mountains, more like Earth than a divine celestial body. Galileo wrote in his diary, "I have seen another world, and that world is as scarred as we are." He didn't stop there. He turned his lens toward Jupiter and saw 4 small specks of light beside it. The next night they moved. The 3rd day, they moved backward, then returned. After 6 sleepless nights of observation, Galileo understood. They were orbiting Jupiter. Not everything revolved around the Earth, as people had believed for 2,000 years. If Jupiter can have its own moons, why can't the Sun have its own planets? That question was the spark that ignited the church's tower. He wrote Sidereus Nuncius, the Starry Messenger, published in the 1610. The book was not just a record, it was an earthquake in the minds of Europe. Through its pages, Galileo described the rugged moon, the moons orbiting Jupiter, and thousands of stars invisible to the naked eye. Each discovery was a dagger to the church's geocentric view, that the Earth stood still, the center of the universe with all celestial bodies revolving around it. With his telescope, Galileo didn't just expand the sky, he expanded humanity's imagination. People in Venice lined up to peer through Galileo's lens, marveling at the moon's mountains and unnamed stars.
Magnificent, wasn't it?
Navigators used his telescope to chart the seas. Merchants dreamed of trade routes to new lands. But most importantly, scientists across Europe began to wonder, if the Earth is not the center, what else we believe might be wrong? The powerful competed to invite him to their courts. The Medici family, Florence's wealthiest, named him mathematician and philosopher to the Grand Duke, making him a symbol of a new era. But amid the praise, Galileo heard the hiss of swords, for each discovery was a slash at the heart of religious faith. If the Earth was just a planet orbiting the sun, then humanity was no longer the center of God's creation. Priests whispered in the shadows, "Galileo is not just looking at the sky, he is trespassing on God's throne." His book and telescope planted the seeds of a scientific revolution, but also the flame that led him to the sword of the Inquisition. In 1611, he was invited to Rome to present his findings to the Papal Academy of Sciences. The Jesuit priests, learned and erudite, were initially impressed. But fear crept in. One priest whispered, "If Galileo is right, the entire Bible must be reread." And so, instead of listening, they reacted. They accused him of disrupting God's order.
The battle
Galileo
had
knew
begun.
the battle had begun. He returned to Florence and continued his work. His telescope grew stronger, able to see sunspots on the sun.
Proof.
People called him blasphemous, for the sun, God's perfect symbol, could not be blemished. Galileo replied gently, "I only record what I see. If God made the sun imperfect, perhaps perfection lies not in appearances." The 1620s. Galileo became the standard-bearer of science, but also a thorn in the church's side. His inventions and observations, from the telescope to experiments on gravity, did not just change how people saw the sky, but how they saw themselves. Young scientists across Europe, inspired by him, began questioning everything, from the motion of planets to the nature of light. But each question was a crack in the church's wall of dogma. When the church banned teaching the heliocentric theory in 1616, Galileo did not stay silent. He wrote, debated, and used allegories to defend the truth. In a small room in Arcetri, he taught his students that science was not submission, but courage. But every word he wrote, every lecture he gave, brought him closer to the blade of the Inquisition. He knew the light of truth always came with the shadow of punishment. In 1632, after more than 20 years of struggle, he published Dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, a dialogue between one who believed the earth stood still and one who believed it orbited the sun. In the book, he named the defender of the earth stands still view Simplicio, meaning fool. Unfortunately, Pope Urban VIII, once his patron, recognized himself in the character. And so Galileo was summoned to Rome. When he stepped into the Inquisition court in 1633, he was 69 years old. After half a lifetime proving the earth moved, he had to prove the opposite, to save his life. The cardinals asked, "Do you deny that the earth revolves around the sun?" Galileo bowed his head. "I deny it." They spared his life in exchange for lifelong house arrest. But as he left the courtroom, a student standing nearby heard him whisper,
Pur si muove.
and yet, it moves. From then on, Galileo lived his final years in solitude, nearly blind. But even in darkness, he wrote. With memory, with fingers tracing paper, he wrote two new sciences, the work that laid the foundation for modern mechanics, for Newton, and for the world we live in today. When he died in 1642, the church forbade his burial in Florence's great cathedral. 200 years later, they allowed his remains to be moved to a worthy place beside Michelangelo. And like a circle closing, the man born the year Michelangelo died was laid to rest beside him, an artist of stone and an artist of light. Galileo did not win in his lifetime, but he won in history, for he didn't just see the sky, he saw how humanity's view of the sky would change forever. God gave us minds not to believe blindly, but to open our eyes and understand.